Mr. Mondale, you said you want to balance the federal budget. Besides eliminating waste, what else will you do to bring that about?
I would do several things. First of all, I'd scale the defense budget to reality. Secondly, I would impose a very strong program of health care cost controls. Thirdly, I would administer the agriculture budget, which has been criminally handled by this administration and now costs some $20 billion or more when it's never cost more than $5 billion in the past. I can administer that in a way to bring those costs down dramatically. I think we need to restore revenues, and I have a specific proposal that would increase and restore revenues progressively so that the people of great wealth, the large corporations that have gotten away with murder, while the average American's taxes have gone up, would have to join the rest of us. And I would make other cuts, but I would also add something in terms of education and science, in terms of promoting the competitive force structure, and also in terms of restoring some fairness in American life. I have worked this out, but no, I've worked this out very carefully. I've worked this out carefully, and I have pledged, and I can achieve it, to reduce the Reagan deficits by more than half.
Let me point out that's the same vague gobbledygook of nothing we've been hearing all through this campaign. Let's just get with it. Let me say something here. There wasn't a single figure attached to that except we're going to reduce it by half. I've put out a very specific program. Other people have here too. This gentleman that just made that statement here, and I like Fritz, he's a fine man, but when you go before labor and you promise you're going to match foreign governments subsidy for subsidy, dollar for dollar, and the cheapest estimate we can get on that is $50 billion. Reuben Askew, who was special trade representative, estimates it's $130 billion. And then you go before other people and you promise them everything else. Is this going to be a Democratic Party that promises everything to everybody and runs up $170 billion a year? Let me finish. $170 billion a year that will only help put more people out of jobs. That's ridiculous. If we're going to balance this budget, it's going to come as we do the things that I've proposed, where we cut the budget and where we go on a pay-as-you-go system, where we have a surtax, where we have defer that indexing. That's the way to it, not going out promising everything to everybody and then not even bothering to go through the checkout counter. I'm disgusted and tired of all the vague promises. I wish that the former vice president would, in fact, get some figures down so they can be compared with what the rest of us are proposing.
Point of personal privilege. The first point, Mr. Glenn, is that the reason we have $200 billion deficits is that you and some others voted for Reaganomics.
No, I'll tell you why I'll tell you why it is. It's because your administration gave us 21% interest rate, 17% inflation rate.
Who has the floor?
And that's why we lost the White House, and it's why we lost the Senate.
Wait a minute.
You said it was free flowing.
Wait a minute now, Mr. Donahue. May I have your? There's just been about a 6-minute speech, all of it baloney, and I would like to have 6 minutes to answer. Now, just a minute. Mr. Glenn voted to create these $200 billion deficits that we're suffering from. He wants to add the B-1 bomber. He voted for poison nerve gas. And he tries to attack my specific proposals that will reduce the federal deficit by more than half by voodoo. Now, wait a minute. Now, by voodoo numbers. For example, let me tell you how he gets up to his figures. I proposed $11 billion for education. He says it's 50. I proposed to put Americans back to work. He said, oh, you want to hire everybody on the federal payroll. Those are baloney figures. My position is responsible, and we're doing just fine.
Can I make one statement? Okay. What I'd like to say is you're both right.
To the right.
They're both right in what they say about each other. You will have
Phil, I think one, as Democrats and the nation looking at us, we have to conduct the affairs of this business in a serious vein. That's important. And it is serious. And secondly, it is important that unless we're going to challenge the corporation to pay their fair share of taxes and deal with the military budget, which we've dealt with for 2 hours, we cannot reduce the budget. The Republicans cannot sit home and enjoy this because they created this budget with their Reaganomic tax proposal. I would hope that before we finish today, it's not just enough for us to offer aid and programs to poor people. We must empower poor people to aid themselves. Now to that extent, so long as the Voting Rights Act of '65 is not enforced across the South, it means you'll not get equity amongst blacks, Hispanics, women, and poor people in the Congress, in the legislatures, in the judiciary, where these decisions are made in fact. Unless that Voting Rights Act is enforced, you'll never get ERA passed, and that's critical because 70% of all poor children live in a house headed by a woman. And unless that passes, you'll not end right-to-work laws so people can get paid the work that they do. So I want some focus here on lifting the votes at the bottom. The blacks, the Hispanics, the women, the Asian, the locked out must be empowered and not just embellished.
Fritz, John, here you two go again. The fact of the matter is this party will not regain leadership so long as the leaders of the past continue to debate whose policies of the past are the worst. Unless we offer some new ideas and some new leadership and recognize the fact that the decline of American industries occurred before Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan didn't invent deficits, he just compounded them. Our party has made some mistakes, and quarreling between the two of you as to whose mistakes were the worst are not going to win the election or